for joining here. So these are our learning objectives. We want to talk about the need for basic skills in ESOL training and why the workplace can help to meet those needs. We are going to specifically focus on the Massachusetts model for workplace ed, which has two different phases, and we want to talk about why we feel each is important. We're going to summarize the role of a planning and evaluation team and how it benefits the program. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about our experience evaluating the effectiveness of the program. And so, as you hear and consider the information we're going to share today, we hope you'll think about how these elements are relevant to your state, because of course every state is different and it looks different, but we think that there are some great elements to this model which are foundational to success. And that's why we agreed to sort of share them with you in this webinar. But as you have questions about your own state or things that we're talking about, please type them in the chat box and we're going to keep track of them. We want to try through the presentation and leave time at the end for questions. But please feel free to type anything that comes for you in the chat box. So first we're going to talk a little bit about the need and why we should even care about workplace education programs. So almost two-thirds of low-wage workers in America are immigrants who lack English proficiency. And yet, a 2010 study of survival literacy training in the workplace for non-native speakers discovered that only 11% of non-native English speakers were enrolled in classes to improve their skills, despite the fact that they are 5 times more likely to function at the lowest levels of literacy as their native-speaking counterparts. So someone is asking, I'm going to stop for a second, if the slide deck will be available. Yeah, we've sent that to CoWave, and you know, we can share it and they can share it if they'd like. That would be fine with us.
Right, so all the information that's shared today will be available on our website.
Great, perfect, thank you. So if you have not already seen this report, Foundational Skills in the Service Sector, we highly recommend that you read it, and we have provided the link. It addresses the challenges of workers in the retail, restaurant, hotel, and hospital service sectors. Based on current available data, the report found that essential day-to-day work responsibilities, such as reading directions in emails, calculating invoices, completing forms, and using computers, are challenging for the more than 60% of service sector employees who have low literacy skills and the more than 70% who have low numeracy skills. Even more alarming than the 20 million service sector employees who lack foundational literacy skills, according to the most recent census data from the U.S. Department of Education reports, more than 47 million adults in the U.S. are in need of adult education, including the 37 million adults who lack a high school equivalency and the 12 million adults who cannot speak English well. However, current adult education or Title II resources are woefully inadequate to meet the need. Currently, state and federal adult education funding only has the capacity to serve about 2 million adults, or the equivalent of 4% of the people who are in need of adult education. So why do we care about workplace literacy programs? Contrary to popular misconceptions about rapid turnover among employees in the service sector, the majority of workers have been with their current employer for at least 3 years. And more than a third have been with their current employer for 6 years or more. So service sector employees really are a stable workforce. We also know that the majority of service sector workers are parents. So given the many demands on their time, situating a program at the workplace makes it more accessible to busy parents who might not have time to attend classes in the evening or on the weekend. But good workplace education programs are a win for the employer too. At the same time that they have the potential to provide employees with opportunities for advancement and wage increases, they equally have the potential to benefit employers by increasing employee retention, safety, and productivity. Workplace ed classes are designed to make it easier for employees to attend and to make the learning more relevant and immediately useful for employees. There are several characteristics of workplace ed classes that differ from traditional ABE classes. First, they evolve from education and employer partnerships. Also, the basic skills in ESOL classes are provided on-site in the workplace for incumbent workers, so they never have to leave where they work to go to classes. Curriculum is contextualized to the workplace using authentic materials in order to make the learning immediately relevant. And finally, classes are almost always multi-level, very multi-level, and often the first exposure to the U.S. style of education for many students. For all of these reasons, workplace learning doesn't look like the kind of typical adult ed classroom that many educators are familiar with. So in the 1990s, the U.S. Department of Education provided grants to states to implement workplace ed programs and then used those demonstration projects to research effective models and to learn about best practices. As a result, there's a lot of research that describes the essential elements of effective workplace education, such as instruction that's contextualized to the workplace, a participatory and inclusive needs assessment process that seeks and values input from the employer, employees, and the education provider, instruction that's grounded in adult learning theory and honors the rights of adults to contribute to and influence their own learning, including the fact that participation in workplace ed should be voluntary for employees. Support from the upper management team, an internal champion for the program, and a comprehensive evaluation process. These foundational elements of workplace ed programs equally align with research on effective instruction for English language learners. For example, task-based, learner-centered instruction, language acquisition for meaningful, self-directed purposes, and communicative competence. Based on that research, the Massachusetts Department of Education developed a model that we're going to talk about today. There are two phases, the planning phase and the implementation phase. The first phase starts with conducting a workplace needs analysis, and the first critical step is to build a joint planning team to guide the project. We call this the Planning and Evaluation Team, or PET, and we're used to that acronym, but it sounds a little funny when we talk to the outside world. So today we're just going to refer to it as the planning team. We've also provided the link to the Massachusetts guidelines, which were developed based on the research. They're specific to Massachusetts, and you would, of course, want and need to adapt them for your state, but they provide a wealth of information, and we share them because we think they're worth looking at. So no matter what you're funding, this model can be used to help guide the project. We found that a planning team and the workplace needs analysis are both essential to the project's success. And so we strongly recommend them even if your state doesn't require them. And we're going to talk about them in greater detail during this webinar. So in Massachusetts, we're fortunate to have multiple sources of funding for workplace ed. But because we know it varies from state to state, we're providing this link, which may be helpful to some folks in beginning to explore funding in your state. Certainly, you would also want to check your own state departments of education and departments of labor. So I'm going to take a little bit of break and hand it over to Kathleen, and she's going to walk us through what the Massachusetts model elements look like in practice.
Hello, everyone. Well, the first step in phase one is to find your employer partner. Here are some things you want to keep in mind. First, you'll want to develop a marketing plan and professional-looking marketing materials. Think about what your program is best at and known for. What do you have to offer? Do you need to hire a new person or give one of your staff hours to do the outreach? Your next step will be to research local businesses. Let everyone you know you're looking for a business partner. Ones with a large immigrant workforce are probably worth exploring. And also find out where your students work. You could reach out to smaller labor unions who may not have a training fund and might welcome an educational partner to assist their business partners. we've noticed that civic-minded employers tend to be generous to their staff and are more likely to host a workplace program. Lastly, we think that medium-sized businesses are perfect. If they're too small, they're not going to have enough staff to support a program. And if it's a large-sized business, they will most likely have a centralized training program. So you think you've found a good partner? What makes a good partner? You might keep these points in mind. Are they receptive? Do they show up for meetings? If only 2 out of the 7 people planned for come to your meeting, that could be a warning sign. You want to keep the company leadership involved in the process. You want to make sure that they're all in. HR tends to always want to do training, but when a business grows or has their busy season, having the support of the leadership team will ensure that your workplace program is going to continue to remain a priority. They should be willing to pay. And most of the funding asks that employers pay the workers during class time, and once again, they should have a large enough workforce with the basic skill needs to fill at least one class, if not more. If a company is paying for the program on their own, this may not be an issue. Meet one of our business partners. We're going to share this video here, and it's a little bit of a couple of steps to make that happen. Yeah, this is like a couple of minutes long, but we think it's worth sharing so you get a sense of a civic-minded business partner. Okay. Hold on a sec.
Hold on. We have to do this. Sorry. We'll just
Okay, hold on a minute. Sorry, a few technical difficulties here. We have to back out, I think, of the... Here. No.
I don't know why it's not working. Hold on. Do this. Got it.
No. Sorry, this may not happen.
There it is.
Oh, okay, here we go. So this is Peter, who's one of our business partners, and he's going to share with you why he offers workplace classes.
Offer an English program in the workplace.
So I decided to offer English as a second language at the workplace for a number of reasons. Growing up as a kid, my dad didn't speak English when he came to this country. And he worked 2 jobs, and it was very difficult for him to learn English. And seeing my team and my workforce, I thought, wow, what if we provided them English as a second language? We hosted the classes here. We bring the teachers in. We pay them for their time so they're not losing anything. And for me, the biggest benefit is, A, it's helping them. B, today recruiting, I have great team members that know Sidekin Foods, knows the operation, knows how we do things, and unfortunately they just don't know the language. So if I can teach them language, in a year and a half, they'll become team leaders. Team leaders today will become managers in a year and a half. So I'm just building my existing team and
Ask if they can hear it.
Can you hear it? Can everybody hear?
We could hear it. It's just stopped.
Okay, good. Yeah, we were testing.
Oh, no. Come on.
Sorry about that. Now it's slow.
In a year and a half. So I'm just building my existing team and
Go back. All right. I guess that's all we're going to hear from Peter today. We'll go back to our other screen.
Okay.
Mhm.
We have to do this.
Mm.
Okay. So we're back.
Okay. Okay, thank you all. Sorry about that. We had a few glitches there. We just wanted you to hear from an actual business owner and how he feels about hosting a project. So now, if you all could join in this brainstorm, finding a business partner. It's a lot of work to find a business partner. You have to start somewhere, and somebody needs to take on that job. So if you could type in the chat box one of the following, or two of the following. Where is one place in your area where you could go to find out more or actually to find potential partners? And secondly, the title of the person at your organization who could take the lead. So if you wouldn't mind typing answers to those two questions in the chat box, we'll take a look at that. Oh, great. Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, we hear that a lot. That's a good one. People are naming actual, the library, employer counselors, Rotary clubs, yes. Regional economic development, directors of workforce development, local job centers, yes. And now think about who from your program might take the lead with this. Like what would their job title be? The director. I see lots of directors. The directors. People go to workforce training centers. One-up training. Career path navigators. Yeah, lots of good ideas. Okay. Leadership in the community college. Yes, in many states, the community college can be a real wealth. And, you know, it tends to vary even from county to county. We find in this state, so what works for you might not work for someone else. So, you know, figure out what is the business landscape in your area of the world and see how your program can make an impact. Yeah, so finding a business partner takes intention and a dedicated person to work on that. So if you do want to do this, make sure that your program knows that, you know, this is a role unto itself. Okay. So now, once you have an employer partner you feel good about working with, you can start your planning process. Planning is key to the success of any prospective project. Okay. Our state Department of Ed has us do an upfront planning process, which we apply to all workplace programs, regardless of the funding source, because we think it is essential to building a strong program. Here are the 9 steps to conducting your workplace needs analysis. So you want to, collect a variety of perspectives from all of the stakeholders, establish a planning team, inventory available assets and address barriers to participation in the program, research the educational and career goals of potential students and the goals of the supervisors. You're going to conduct a very preliminary assessment of basic skill needs and work processes. prioritize services and promote the program to supervisors and staff. Figure out when you might be able to hold classes, and document the capacity of the employer to support the program with space and match and release time. And then lastly, work on your curriculum. We'll talk about all of this as we go. So here are the first steps in your workplace needs analysis, W&A we call it. So the first thing I do is I like to prepare some basic surveys, tailoring them to the business as much as possible. Then I write up a timeline of events ready for our first meeting, so that our employer partner knows what's going to happen when. To get your planning team started, talk to your contact at the business. They may not know who they should invite to this first meeting. In general, managers and frontline supervisors of potential students, HR staff, and maybe a member of the senior management team. For number 2, when you actually have your first planning team meeting, there are several things that you can do at that meeting. Discuss how you will reach out to survey the workforce. Agree on paid time for workers to be part of the process. And be clear with them about what number of people you need to survey. Work with a team to set up times and places for surveys. And each workplace has its own structure and ways of getting information out there. So learn how to operate within their structure, and it'll make your job easy. Lastly, use this time that you have with the team to customize your surveys. Okay, my mouth is very dry. I'm like Trump. Here are some of the tools that you'll use to gather the information that you need. It's important to interview all of the stakeholders, workers, frontline supervisors, and upper-level managers too. You can do individual interviews or focus groups for any of the stakeholder groups. I like to do some of each because each has its own strengths. One thing that you don't want to do is put workers and supervisors together in one focus group. Interviews are generally 15 to 20 minutes long, while a 40-minute focus group should be plenty of time. Online surveys work in some places, not in others. You'll have to see if that works for you. And ask about observing workers or going on a tour. A very important point here is to ensure that interviewees know that everything they say will be confidential, and of course the results will then be described in aggregate. And in that vein, if you do need to use bilingual people, hire your own. Do not use people from the business. Oftentimes the business will offer that and say, oh yeah, we have so-and-so who can help with that. You will not get the same content. Employees may not feel comfortable speaking truthfully about, one, how they function at their job, and two, anything about their shortcomings. So the surveys, there's surveys out there that you can use, and then you kind of customize them to your workplace. But you want to be sure that they, one, identify the educational needs and career goals, of the workers, as well as any language literacy and numeracy needs for a range of job categories. This will help you plan your level of classes. Secondly, you want to find out about the oral and written communication systems that are already in place at the workplace. This will paint a picture for you of how the workplace functions. For example, when translation maybe is being used because workers don't have the language skills they need, which in turn takes up valuable lead staff time. And I think when you interview both supervisors, managers, and the staff, you will get a very unique perspective. And thirdly, ask about any changes that are coming up, or changes that recent changes that the staff have needed to learn. What we found is sometimes employers think that a recent change to sort of, a new app or something is all in place, but it turns out that many of the workers are still scrambling to keep up and learn. Lastly, you want to figure out how to present to the workplace, how a workplace education program can benefit the workers and the workplace. So those are surveys, and as I said, you can usually just Google that, and you can find decent surveys out there that you can then customize to workplace. Go on a tour or 2 or 3. Tours are incredibly helpful. They'll give you a visual so that you can understand what the workplace looks like and what people are actually doing in their jobs, because you're going to be talking to people about their work, and if you can have a visual of what they actually doing, it's going to be easier to understand what they're talking about. You also might notice signs or equipment or documents that you might later be able to use. In terms of photos, we didn't take these photos on a first tour. Generally, you would wait until you have the project in place, for privacy issues. I am going to turn you back over to Luanne now, who's going to talk about how we move forward using the results of the workplace needs assessment to plan a project.
Okay, I'm back. Oops. So there's multiple benefits from having done the workplace needs analysis process. Here in Massachusetts, first of all, the benefit is it's required, so it makes our funders happy, but also we use the results to plan the program design and apply for funding. But beyond that, it also provides awareness of the project before it arrives. So that helps ease the implementation process and creates a smooth transition for everyone into the program and classes, because everybody already knows about it. They know that it's coming. And you can use your survey list to help build your class lists, because people are already aware of and interested in the program. And most importantly, the workplace needs analysis ensures that the program truly reflects the needs of both the employers and the employees. So once we're done with our workplace needs analysis, we aggregate all the data and the work collaboratively with our business partner through the joint planning team to design the program that best meets the needs of employees and the employer. All of the specifics, the class times, number of weeks, the space where classes will be held, who will serve on the planning team, etc., are codified in a memorandum of agreement, which is signed by both our business partner and World Education, and this is a sample that you see on the screen. It's a critical step because it becomes the blueprint for the program moving forward, and it ensures that everybody has buy-in and understands exactly what the expectations are of both the business and the educator provider. In this case, it's us, but also sort of the commitment to compensate the employees for their participation in class. Once your funding's in place, The planning continues to be the cornerstone of the program. So in addition to operating issues around scheduling meetings and finalizing plans, it's important to nurture your planning team. So what's worked for us and what we recommend is that you brainstorm with them around what's most beneficial to focus on in your face-to-face meetings. We regularly schedule meetings in the beginning once a month, and then once we're on a roll, once every other month. But really think about and brainstorm what's going to provide the greatest return on investment for people's time. And so we found it useful to keep them up to date with info out types of information by sending a newsletter. So we devote valuable face-to-face meeting time to getting their input on important issues like involving them in curriculum development and inviting them to contribute work-related ideas and materials that'll be helpful to integrate into the curriculum. It's also important to respect the culture of the workplace, which is different from a typical classroom or school environment. So our meetings are 1 hour long, for example, and at the end of that, like 5 minutes before the meeting is going to end, people's alarms go off on their watches because they are ready to move on to their next meeting. So business time is a very critical thing, and they are very attentive to it. So yes, I'm going to hand you right back over to Kathleen.
Hello. So as you start to build your curriculum, develop and prioritize a list of topics and skills based on the needs that you uncovered during the worksite needs analysis process. Find out which topics are the most pressing for your students. Keep curriculum building and open discussion at planning meetings. As a workplace ed teacher and manager, you always have to balance the views of the various stakeholders. Our Seaport planning team wanted us to explore their green program with classes, since our students play a big part in it. We integrated reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills and customer service soft skills. And one outcome of the unit was that some of our students were then able, they had the language that they needed to talk about the program with guests. The other point is that as the program grows, or you get new teachers in, make sure that they are also part of the planning team. So these are some materials and resources that you may have gathered during the worksite needs analysis process. If you don't have something that you need or don't understand what you have, ask your planning team. Consult with them to be sure that you understand how documents are used and who actually needs to use the document, so that you're not sort of creating stuff in a vacuum. One thing that I have found an easy way to kind of give students access to curricula customized to the workplace is to use Quizlet or other mobile-friendly apps. The students can access these on their phones 24/7, and all of our students use their phones during the workday. And I also always check back with the planning team when I make a set. I say, how does this look? Is this term correct? Is this the kind of language that you use here? And as you know, always continually work with your students to ensure that their goals are being met. Okay, you want to integrate skills and knowledge, and this is a really big topic, so we're just going to kind of touch on it here. But so use your state's curriculum frameworks as well as the college and career readiness standards as you integrate skills into your theme-based units. You can build in rigor at all levels of instruction from, for example, reading simple documents like a safety warning sign to a more difficult document like an employee handbook. Use the standards to help you formulate lessons that have students do close reading and find evidence in the text. You can do that at every level. And help students upskill by reading and writing business documents and learning to navigate the web. Sorry, I need a drink of water. To address the multi-level nature needs of my class, I often use audio or other media, video, to scaffold the lesson. Here we go. My students all want to build their listening skills. So for the beginning readers with good listening skills, audio paired with reading assists them with the reading. I've used audio from publishers, from the Change Agent, which we produce here, and audio that we've made. And you want to assess actual skills or concepts students should know for the job to keep the class relevant. So for an example, for a final assessment on a safety unit, my students had to locate safety info on chemical labels of cleaners. So these were real labels that they are expected to be able to read and understand for their own personal safety. And they were able to do it. And the manager who was on our planning team said that he noticed especially a couple of people were complying more with the safety protocols. So that was a win. So here we have a sample student-made video. So the students did field trips and they showed each other what they did on their jobs. And here she's explaining how she performs turn-down service for guests. So this was not my class, it was a more upper-level class. And we're going to try and get this one loaded. They used iMovie on iPads to create this. And the benefit of this was that they were able to practice the speaking part over and over again. Hopefully we can get this up. There we go. Terrible.
Hello, we're not seeing it or hearing it.
You can't hear it?
No, we can't see it or hear it.
Yeah, here, pause it. I'm sorry about that. We're not sure what's happening here. Let's go back here. Can you see it?
No, we cannot see it. Maybe you want to stop share and then reshare.
Yeah, we're going to try that.
It's not here. That's the problem. Share screen, right? Ask them if they can hear it now.
How about now?
I take the orange pillow of the bed and I fold the chip out and I took the barrel of the chips under the mattress. And I do the same thing to the other side. And then I take the top of the chip and I fold into the shape of the envelope. I put the orange pillow in the closet and I take the padlock to the bed. I open the rod in the bed with the front down. I start to fold the sleeves inwards. Then I fold the rope in 3 equal parts. The last part that remains is the front, and I smooth out the wrinkles. I open the nightstand and I take out the breakfast menu and I put into the bed in the middle of the pillows. I turn off all the lights except one next to the alarm clock and I put the radio 99.5 with the volume low and I close the curtains. And that's how we do turn down service.
share. Okay. See if we can get back to here. Okay, so hopefully you are all back on this. Hopefully, all back on this this screen. So sorry for the technology. It's a little bit of a different tool than we use. So in addition to keeping the planning team engaged, you'll want to evaluate the effectiveness of the program for your own continuous improvement effort. And this process can also help you market the program for private funding once the initial funding period has ended, either directly from your business partner or through other funders. We could do an entire session on just the evaluation process, but today we wanted to share some highlights from our evaluation of one of our workplace ed programs, which is at the Seaport Hotel in Boston, just to give you an idea of the types of information gathering we used and some of what we learned. And that video was from one of the team members at the Seaport. When we conducted this program evaluation at the Seaport, we used both quantitative and qualitative data, which we gathered from our database, but also surveys to employees in the classes and surveys in a focus group with supervisors. We were pleased that 100% of the students in the classes responded to our survey, and we received a lot of valuable feedback, including the following: that 100% of the students indicated that the classes had helped them in some way on their job. The overwhelming majority, 76%, said that the classes had helped them to communicate better, so to understand and be understood by supervisors, coworkers, and guests. And 100% of the students also said that the classes had helped in their personal lives, citing examples such as being able to function more confidently and independently when doing daily tasks like going to the store, buying a car, or paying bills, or going to the doctor. And the quotes on the bottom are quotes from the student surveys, and I just love them so much that I've included them. In feedback from supervisors, they noted that employees are more actively and confidently asking for things they need and communicating more freely with supervisors, managers, and guests and across departments. They're working more independently and showing leadership among coworkers. They demonstrate improvement in reading and writing tasks, and supervisors also noted that employees have started to ask if their grammar is correct and also asking to be corrected when it's not. Finally, employees are demonstrating increased respect for coworkers and awareness of their work, thanks to cross-departmental communication and activities like the field trip. So we have a couple of conclusions from our evaluation we just want to summarize with you quickly. So first of all, the planning and evaluation team is critical to the success of the program. They support employee participation in the program by scheduling shifts so employees can attend class and providing paid release time. They help to coordinate the field trips. They contributed materials, manuals, policies, and other workplace materials to contextualize and inform instruction. So it's always immediately relevant and applicable to employees in the classes on the job. And they also encouraged a student from each class to serve on the planning team, which allows for increased communication between supervisors and employees. So the employees benefit from participating in the classes, both on the job and in their daily lives. And employees really report feeling more comfortable and confident in using their English, understanding and being understood better, and being able to function more independently in their lives. Third, improvements at the Seaport have resulted from the classes. Because employees are able to work and communicate more independently, they rely less on supervisors, who previously were interrupted more often to provide assistance and help translate. Also, this was really key for us, employee representatives, so students from the classes who serve on the planning team, brainstormed with their coworkers in classes and developed recommendations for some services at the hotel they felt could be improved. And these recommendations have actually been adopted, and they serve as a great example of how employees have been empowered through the program, thanks to increased communication between the supervisors and the employees, especially through the work of the planning team. And fourth, the supervisors and employees are really vested in the program. They share the belief that it's valuable and important. Despite the many demands on their time and the challenges of participating in classes at the end of a long work day, 89% of employees in the classes said they plan to return the following year. So it just shows, and all of our planning team members have persisted in the program for more than 3 years now. So a couple of additional benefits. Throughout our partnership, we've explored mutual opportunities for increased visibility for both organizations. Because these programs are seen as innovative and they're such an amazing partner, we found multiple opportunities, such as this webinar and what we have on the screen, to talk about them and talk about the programs, our partners, and their value. And as a result of our strong collaboration and the real benefits we've realized to the employer and the employees, the Seaport has already agreed to fund the program themselves once the current 3-year funding from the Massachusetts Department of Education ends in June. So I want to say on that note, that's what we have to say, and we left a few minutes for questions. But I really want to say on that note, we want to thank the Massachusetts Department of Education for their support of this program. It's really that structure. It's in the guidelines, which are linked in the PowerPoint, which Sharon said earlier was going to be available to everybody on their website. But their guidelines and sort of their support and their funding and their system really contributed to the success and the effectiveness of the program. We're lucky to have great workplace partners, but we appreciate the model and the guidance, and I just want to give a shout out to them. So that's it for me. There were a couple of questions. One is, can we get a copy of the PowerPoint? So I think yes. Sharon, maybe you could say if there'll be a copy of the webinar, but also somebody earlier asked for the study from the 1990s. I think it was referring to the research from the 1990s, and we can provide that link to Sharon to post with the materials as well. And I'm going to just pass it back over to Kathleen so she can thank everybody too.
Okay, thank you. If there aren't any more questions out there, then we'll be logging off. I think some of these questions seem to be for Sharon. I see Ronald says you've already partnered with the Hilton Hotel. Great, good. I think, yeah, where are you from, Ronald? From Tampa. Great.
If we can come visit.
Yeah, we'd like to come visit. Get out of Boston.
Luanne and
supposed to snow
Kathleen,
tomorrow.
this is Sharon. I see a couple other questions.
Oh, you
One
do?
from someone who's saying, have you chosen not to partner with interested employers because they did not meet criteria for being a good partner?
Generally, if they were too small, sometimes it's happened that they were too small. And yeah, we've met with a few people who said, "Oh yeah, let's meet," and then not much happened. But it wasn't that we sort of chose not to work with them. They just it just kind of fizzled. So.
And then another question is, what assessments do you use?
That's a good question. Because we are in this project, the Seaport project funded by the state of Massachusetts, we have to use the Massachusetts assessments, which are TABE Class E, reading or writing, or Best Plus 2.0. So we do use those, but we also develop a lot of assessments in class, as I talked about, that are more relevant, to kind of the workplace and to what we've been teaching. Okay.
So I see a question asking if we can share the evaluation questionnaire. So the evaluation questionnaire that we used is really so customized to the Seaport, and it's kind of proprietary, but our emails are on this PowerPoint. So if you were to, I can't post it on a national webinar because it's not really appropriate to share it. But if you emailed me privately or emailed Kathleen privately, either one of us, we can sort of give you the template for the kinds of, we can give you a sense of the kinds of questions that we asked that would be generic enough. It was both open-ended and close-ended questions, survey questions. And
there's also another question here when you're ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great. Is the goal improved ESOL only, or is the attainment of diplomas also a concern?
So it would be, so for us, it's about improving the employee's ability to communicate in English on the job. So it's for us in this particular program, it's about English, but it can be whatever is identified as a need through your workplace needs analysis. So if getting a high school equivalency is a goal for employees in that business, then for sure that could be, the instruction would be focused on those skills, and you'd give the assessments to determine the levels and whatnot. But yeah, it can be whatever goal surfaces for the employees and the employer.
Another question, what did you do to identify employers who are willing to pay for employee time to participate in class?
So when we first reach out to businesses, it takes a lot of contacts, and it takes a lot of knocking on doors, and it takes finding, Kathleen said earlier, a medium-sized business is ideal, but what we really find is that an employer that has a social conscience is the one that you really want to work with, because we tell them up front, this is a grant fund, and you're going to get money from the state or whatever fund, and it's going to allow you to provide classes, but in return, you have to pay the employees. So we just are really upfront. And for every person we work with, there's probably 5 businesses who say we just can't swing it. That's another reason why it's hard for small businesses. So, so somebody asked about workplace, if we have a form for the workplace needs analysis. We have it's not really a form, it's a process, but we have sample surveys, and yeah, we can email those too. I would say if you're interested in this, shoot us an email. It's just not the kind of stuff that we can really post sort of nationally because it was developed in collaboration, but we can share it for sure. Did we miss any other questions?
I'm just looking here real quick too to help you guys.
Adjust to take advantage of small businesses.
Oh, the thing about small businesses that's interesting is for our funding, and maybe it'll look differently, it's going to look differently from community to community and state to state, is we can also do consortium programs. So for example, if you have an industrial park and there's 5 or 6 businesses and a couple of them want to get together, there are often times where there'll be a consortium and the businesses partner so you can get critical mass that's enough students to be in a class, and then they'll rotate them. Like, for 6 weeks they'll be in one business will provide the space, and then 6 weeks another one will provide the space. And we do sort of this, especially if it's an industrial park or there's a shared kind of industry, we try to find the common needs. But you can have small businesses work collaboratively, and if there's enough of a critical need across the businesses, you certainly can work with multiple small businesses.
Great. Well, I would just like to take a moment here to thank you both, Kathleen and Luanne. We really appreciate your expertise on this topic, and I want to just remind everybody that World Ed has been a fantastic partner to COABE and a fantastic leader in the field. So go ahead and look at their resources, and thank you all for participating, and we hope to see you at the next webinar.
And thank you so much for joining us on what's a Friday afternoon for us, or almost lunchtime for some of you, but we really appreciate your excellent questions and your attention, and thank you, Sharon, so much for allowing us to be part of this. We love doing it.
It's our pleasure. Thank you, ladies.
All right, thanks. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.